Welcome back to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And we're honored to be here with Ryan LaSuer. He's the Executive Director of Community Care Fellowship. How are you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. So let's start with some context. Give us a little bit of history for Community Care Fellowship.
Yeah, so Community Care Fellowship has been around this community here in Nashville for over 40 years. We actually started down at McKendree United Methodist Church. They used to serve a meal to the working class and would actually have a service right after that. And they started seeing people late 70s come in who couldn't pay for that meal. And what they didn't know is that was the beginning of people experiencing homelessness in our Nashville community. And so over that next 6 months, it went from a handful of people to about 90. The church recognized that they needed to step in and walk alongside these individuals and support them. And so they created a small microcosm of what we have right now that provided stabilizing services right downtown. And then in the late 80s, we moved over to East Nashville, right off of Shelby, where we're currently located. And currently, our organizational structure model is actually based off of a book, Toxic Charity, and it's all about having, first and foremost, those stabilizing services. So we provide showers and laundry and food and mail services for our guests that are experiencing homelessness, as well as those that are living under the poverty line. So we have actually a mixed community that come in for those stabilizing services, but we don't stop there. It's very important in that toxic charity model to have a stabilizing services first, and then to have those pathways out to those transformational programs. And so what that looks like for us is that's done in partnership through several different nonprofit organizations, and then some of our own programs. And so those are employment pathways, those are spiritual pathways, those are permanent housing pathways. If there needs to be emergency shelter, which is our newest program, we have those pathways to create that upward mobility for our guests experiencing homelessness who come through our front door.
Talk about statistics. So give us an idea of scope when you look at the number of individuals served, but also the number of collaborators. So talk about some of the numbers that you look at on your end.
Yeah, so with our stabilizing services, we, on a non-COVID year, since that's where you kind of have to back it out to, we typically serve about 30,000 meals. It's about 8,000 showers, about 5,000 loads of laundry. We give out 40,000 hygiene products. So anything you get at a Walgreens minus your prescription drugs. And then in partnership, we have between 15 and 20 partners that help us to carry out our mission. We don't want to duplicate something that somebody's already doing really well. It just makes sense to partner with them, let them handle those pieces that we don't do well. And allow them to us to have that collective impact that the community can have when we work together.
What are the points of entry when you look at people coming to you? Talk about points of entry.
Yeah, so points of entry, that's a great question, Jeremy, because we're actually currently stepping into a strategic plan where we're creating hyper-local points of entry. So that is our resource hub. That is those stabilizing services. And so currently we have a site in East Nashville. We have a site in Madison area. We're about to launch a site in the West Nashville area. And so it's around those areas where there are encampments, and we're building those resource hubs. Because the way I always tell others, just to give them a glimpse of and help them understand, sometimes we expect our guests experiencing homelessness or even people living in poverty to all come to one location to get those needs met. And it doesn't matter how long they have to travel, and that a bus takes 3 times as long as driving your car. None of those things matter. We have the resources, so why aren't they taking advantage of them? Well, they're just like you and I. If I want to go get pizza, I'm going probably in my neighborhood unless they have really, really good pizza downtown. And so we create those resource hubs in their neighborhood because they're a whole lot more likely to come in for services and then connect with those pathways out. And so it really helps create that, fill in those gaps where people get stuck experiencing homelessness by creating resource hubs within their community, within their neighborhood, and then doing it in partnership. So whenever we go into West Nashville or Madison, we connected with other people that were already working in this space. We don't know the community, they know the community, and we're just coming alongside with our expertise and our support to partner with them and serve those neighbors in that community.
And I think that's, to me, part of the brilliance is you're not trying to recreate the wheel. You're trying to help the wheel spin faster by bringing those resources. And so you can accelerate the momentum versus trying to come in and, like you said, say, oh, we know everything. It's like, no, we're going to partner with you. And together we can make this go faster and help more people and get them where they need to be successful and on the right trajectory for their lives. Talk about success stories. So give us, one or two that stand out to you that kind of illustrate the impact that you're able to create.
Yeah, and so I have several. But when I first came into this job, it was like God really needed me to walk alongside a family experiencing homelessness because it really wrecked me in a great way, in the sense of understanding just all of the variables that individuals deal with experiencing homelessness. And so when I first came in, there was a family of six, a mom, a dad, and 4 children, all living in an Escalade, and an old beat up Escalade. And just to start having those conversations and building relationship with the family, I got to see that they had come all the way to Nashville with the promise of a new job, gotten here, the job was pulled out from under them. And now they had no network of support, which is always that's probably the only single denominator that you can kind of spread across people experiencing homelessness, the network of support. And so now they were searching for that network of support. And so just to walk in our doors and immediately have support, and the things that because I always like to think of, okay, what's the new most innovative way that we can help this family, and what's the new research say, and all those things. And to hear them talk about what was most important to them was having a safe space to sit around a table and eat breakfast together as a family. And it hit me of, you have to start here. And those simple things that we think are simple, they mean so much to our guests that walk through our front door. Just showing them respect, showing them dignity, giving them those stabilizing services. And so we walked alongside this family. We're able to plug them in with another organization, Safe Haven, who primarily works with families experiencing homelessness. They got into permanent housing out of that program, and because of that partnership. And then another family was a former veteran, and they again were living out of. Now, I was super impressed, and I think this came from his time in the military, but they lived in an eclipse with 2 children and a mom and a dad. And I went out to their trunk this one time, and I was like, man, if I could organize like this, I would go into doing California closets or something like this. This is amazing that you have everything in here that you need. But again, they had the motivation. They had the want to. And so it was simply giving them those stabilizing services, helping them to get out of that crisis mode, that survival mode, and then working with our connections and plugging them into permanent housing. And they actually moved to San Antonio, and we still talk on a regular basis. It's been about 3 years ago when we worked with them. And their heart is to recreate something similar to what we have here at Community Care Fellowship there in San Antonio. And so it's just a great, great story to see how the family has just, with just a little bit of support, has really achieved their goals. And I think that's yet another important thing. We try to very intentionally, it's person-centered goals. And so it's not me telling you what's best for you. It's what are your hopes? What are your dreams? How can we walk alongside you? How can our partners walk alongside you and help you get to that goal or that dream?
The thing that I like about both of those stories is it also busts the stereotypes. Like when you think about homelessness, most people sadly gravitate toward alcoholism, drug addiction, and things like that. And in both of those stories, you illustrate, no, these are families who really something happened in terms of not having a support network, but something happened, loss of a job, loss of an opportunity. And next thing you know, they find themselves facing homelessness, living out of their vehicle, and just being able to step in and pour in and give them the support network and the resources then gets them on the trajectory that they need to go in a positive direction. But yet, in many cases we think, oh, it's this, but no, homelessness can really strike at any point, any family, any individual, especially for those who are paycheck to paycheck. One bad thing happening, a car wreck, loss of a job, and next thing you know, that family is homeless. And so being able to support your efforts to support those families is critically important. Carry that forward into what you're doing that is unique. You've got 2 mobile housing navigation centers. You kind of mentioned this a little bit, but talk a little bit more about that.
So yeah, that is the newest thing that we're jumping into, including we're also doing rapid rehousing in an old senior living facility where we'll be housing 48 individuals and be able to provide those wraparound services and have community partners come in and work with those guests that are living there on site. But the Mobile Housing Navigation Center was something that was just launched, supported through the mayor's office, the funding, and we're in partnership with Metro Homeless Impact Division. And so what that looks like is we are launching the pilot in 2 sites. So we'll be doing it in Madison and in the West Nashville community. And it goes back to hyper local, working where the encampments are. And the goal is with the partnership of churches, so people that are already loving on their neighbors, we're utilizing their space that they're not currently utilizing to create emergency shelter, providing the staff, providing the security, letting the church plug in where they want to walk alongside of our guests. And with a goal of 90 days of getting them into permanent housing, plugging them into mental health services, if that's a support that they need, plugging them into addiction resources, if that's, again, one of their needs, into employment, and to eventually, in that 90 days, into permanent housing. And so I just met with a partner this morning with Centerstone, and they have Keys to Recovery, which is one of their programs. And so we've already talked about partnering in these spaces and allowing them to walk alongside our guests and support them in ways that we don't have those resources to do so. We have the case manager, we have the housing navigator, but they can come alongside them and provide those resources that we cannot.
So how can the community help your efforts?
Well, there's several ways that they can support our efforts. One, I would say volunteering, and they can do that by, I don't know if you'll plug this in later, but they can go on our website at ccf.nashville.org, and they can plug in to getting into volunteering. Dave Steinmetz is our volunteer coordinator. Giving is a huge piece. While we have grant supports that support the programmatic pieces of a lot of our projects, what doesn't get supported a lot of times is the general operations. And so being able to have donors that believe in what we're doing, that come alongside us financially and supporting those efforts is a huge way to give to our organization and impact those that are experiencing homelessness in our community.
What's something that you've learned, or how have you changed personally with the work that you're doing in the community?
That's a great question, Jeremy. I have become so much more grateful. It really has. I talked to you about the family that I first walked alongside, and I can remember getting home and going inside to take a shower, which is something we do every single day. And God brought to my mind just how I needed to be thankful for those things, because here are guests that I'm working with every day that don't have even those simple things that we all take for granted. And that's actually, real quick, if I can, that's actually one of the things I do with volunteer groups when they come into our space. is I walk them through a day of experiencing homelessness, because it gives so much perspective to what it takes for you and I to accomplish the same thing. So jobs, I said, what would happen if you lost your job? Well, I would get on LinkedIn. I'd reach out to my parents. I would talk to, this connection and get out my resume and touch it up. And I'd probably have a job in a week or so. Let me walk you through the same scenario of one of our guests. I'm in the encampment. I have to figure out where I'm taking a shower. I have to figure out maybe where I'm getting some food. I have to not take my backpack into the interview because they're immediately going to, throw away my application. I don't have a resume. I don't know how to write one. And then I need to figure out transportation. And if all else fails, as I'm walking out of the encampment, somebody says, why don't you just stay with me? Let's just hang out the rest of the day. And so there's all these different obstacles, and it's not an excuse, but it's context. And I think that's so important. It's context for how much harder it is for our guests to do the same things that you and I can do easily every day. And so that's why it's important for us as a community and me personally to do everything I can to create that upward mobility and to walk alongside them.
I think that is part of it. Is it creates empathy and, putting yourself in someone else's shoes so that you understand what they're going through, those challenges, and have a better appreciation and understanding, but also to respect for the situation that they're dealing with, and knowing then how to be more proactive in helping them. Wrap up. You mentioned it before, but wrap up with website, social media. Where do we go to learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go to www.ccfnashville.org, you can find out a little bit about us, and you can plug into volunteering. If you want to give, there's a donate button right there online. And you can always reach out to me. I won't get my cell phone online, but I love to bring people down and give them a tour of one of our resource hubs and let them experience that personally, because it changes everything when you actually get to see in action what's going on in our own community, and you naturally drawn to those places where you plug in and can serve and give.
Absolutely. The website again is ccfnashville.org, obviously short for Community Care Fellowship, and on Facebook, Community Care Fellowship, on Twitter, CCF 511, and then CCF Nashville on Instagram. So Ryan, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Jeremy, for having me. Have a great day.